So before proceeding with the .NET Core releases, let's start with the release types. So basically, Microsoft framework is released first in the in the June 2016, and it is evolved every it is evolved with every frequent release which is provided by the Microsoft platform. The first release was deployed in the June 2016 with version 1.0, and the current release we are using is .NET 6.0. So with every release, the .NET framework or .NET Core framework has provided new features, enhancement, bug fixes, and compatibility issues in their releases. Let's start with the release types. Okay, so we will first understand what is mean by major release, what do you mean by minor release, and what are the service updates. Because every year or within a frequent time, the Microsoft is announcing new releases into their current framework. So every time Microsoft is releasing their new release, it has some information which is encoded in their version with the form of major, minor, and patch. So what is mean by major release, what is mean by minor release, and what is mean by patches or bug fixes or service updates, we will be discussing in this current session, right? So suppose .NET Core has been provided with the new release such as 2.1.103. Now here the .NET Core 2.0 is the major release of the product which is provided by the Microsoft team. So here the first numeric character or the first number is associated with the major release which is provided by the Microsoft team. Then the next number after the dot is the minor version which is provided by the Microsoft team, and the next is the patch update or service update which is denoted as 103. So here in .NET Core 2.1.103 has the major version of version 2.0 with minor version 1 and patch update as 103, right? So the 103 is the part of the minor version 2.1. So there can be a multiple minor versions which can be provided in the upcoming releases as well, right? So what is mean by the major release, what is mean by the minor release, we have already discussed in this session. So the Microsoft has provided the major release of .NET Core like 2.0, 3.0 and .NET 5.0 along with the current release .NET 6.0. In the current release of the Microsoft which is provided by the Microsoft team is the .NET 6.0 and which is supporting the Visual Studio 2022. So you can download the Visual Studio 2022 and you will be having the .NET Core environmental setup in your application. So basically what the major release, what the minor release provides in their versions or new releases are the new features, compatibility supports along with the bug fixes. So The major release is basically the upgradation of the framework to the newer one. Every version can be having the new features which which are not present in the previous releases, and we can directly use these new releases along with the previous versions. Basically, there is support for every version up to the certain or specific period of time. So the new versions, whenever we are going to install the new versions, there are the previous version will be supported up to the 1 and 2 months from the release of the next month, or it may be available for the 1 year or 2 year depending on the major or minor releases. Next is the minor release. So similar to the major release, the minor release includes the addition of features, supports, and bug fixes in their releases. So what do you mean by the minor releases? As the name suggests, the minor releases has the smaller changes in their versions. So whenever we are saying that there is a minor release provided by the Microsoft, the minor release will be having a small fixes or the small which is with the compatible or with resolving the compatibility issues which are generally smaller in nature. So there is no need for, whenever there is no need for the major release, we can, or Microsoft has announced, or Microsoft will announce, there will be a smaller release or the minor release to their framework. So the users can directly download or can directly able to use that minor framework, and with the users can directly use it minor framework in their projects, and they can be able to develop the applications with that newer version, right? Next is the service updates. So basically, whenever Microsoft is saying that we are providing the service updates or patches, basically it can contain the security and non-security updates or fixes in their releases. Here the .NET Core 3.8 3.1.8 is the 8th update of .NET Core version 3.1. Now the .NET Core is continuously evolving and making the major fixes or the bugs in their environment. So you can be getting the new releases or patch updates in a frequent manner. So next is the feature bands. The versioning of the .NET Core SDK works slightly different from the .NET Core runtime. The .NET Core SDK sometimes includes the new features or new versions of the components like MS Build and NuGet to align with the new studio releases. So these feature bands or releases are given in terms of the 100 brands. Like the first feature release for .NET Core SDK 3.1.100 will be provided, and up to the 3.1.199 there will be a feature release. Okay, so these are considered as a feature release for this specific minor version. So from 3.1.100 to 3.1.199 there will be a feature band. The features are added in this particular minor version, which will be active or which will be available throughout the minor version 3.1. Whenever we are saying we will be having the SDK release of 3.1.200, the next feature band is considered as the 3.1.200, and the releases will be available the update will be available for this particular features up to the version 3.1.300. For the 100 patches or for the 100 patches, we can consider it as a feature bands. So next is the .NET Core life cycle. So as we know, the .NET Core framework provides the support for fixed and long period of time. So current version of .NET framework is 4.8 and which will be available for longer period of time. So basically what is mean by the support? The support which the support is basically called as the security and non-security fixes, and the support which is also called as the extended support. Whenever there is a mainstream support and whenever we are saying that there is a extended support, there are two basically different terms. The mainstream support includes the security and non-security fixes, and extended support includes only the security fixes. So currently some of the .NET Core versions like .NET Core 3.1 is under the maintenance, like it is the extended support for current 6 months or last 6 months. In this particular period, there will be having no updates for the current release, only it will be providing the security patches or the security updates to that particular minor or major version. However, the .NET Core typically provides the support for a shorter period of time. So what is mean by the shorter period of time? The .NET Core provides releases for every frequent time, like the last month there will be some release, in the next month there will be some bug fixes or the minor release. So .NET Core is evolving continuously as it is a cross platform. They are making their environment stable, and the number of people or the more number of people can develop the application by using the .NET Core framework. So they are making their environment compatible to the multiple operating systems and the multiple development environments. So these features are constantly getting added in the .NET Core framework. So there are two types of releases. First one is the current release. Basically these type of releases are supported for a period of 18 or 6 months after the next major or major releases. So whichever is the longer. Current releases like .NET 3.0, 2.2 were supported for period of 15 months or 3 months after the next major or minor releases. For example, the .NET Core 5.0 shipped or released in the November 2020, and the new version of .NET 6.0 is released in November 2021. So there is almost gap of 1 year between the two releases. So currently we are using the .NET 6.0. So these releases are in an incremental manner. So first release of .NET Core was 1.0 and current release of .NET is .NET 6.0. The upcoming releases are .NET 7 and which is .NET 7 which is under the preview phase, and it will be released in November 2022. The upcoming release after the .NET 7 is .NET 8, which will be released in the December 2023. So every year the major release of .NET Core is coming, or it will be releasing in a frequent manner. This will be the major releases. So next is the long-term support. So basically, long-term support is considered as whenever there is the supports of the framework or a version for a minimum of 3 years or 1 year after the next long time release support. So the current version, that is .NET 6.0, it comes under the long-term support category. So it is called as long-term support category. It is used, and this will be available for next 1 year. So you can check here the .NET 6.0 is used will be used up to the November 2022, and the support will be available for the November 2022 only, and the next release of .NET 7.0 will be coming in the November 2022. Right? So there is a gap of 1 year in the releases. From 6.0 to 7.0, it will take around 1 year to release. So there can be possibility that long time support releases can be supported for more than a newer or a current release. That the .NET 6.0 will be available for more than 1 year, like the support, as Microsoft is saying that support will be available till the November 2022, but it can be extended up to 6 months or 8 months or a year. It depends on the Microsoft, right? The next is the preview releases. The .NET Core 7.0 is currently under the preview phase. That means that this release is not available for the public use up till now. This will be available for the users or for the developers in the month of November 2022. So before going to the public with the new releases, Microsoft will test these releases with specific people or specific number of people. It will check the compatibility, or it will check for the issues, and then only it will release for the public use. So it is called as the preview releases. So I have created one chart of the .NET version along with its release date, latest version which is available with the .NET
रेनू
Core framework.
चाय बना दे
So let's start. So .NET Core versions and support. So I have specified the version details in the first column, then the release date of this particular releases, the latest patch, latest version date, along with the end of support date. Next is whether it has support up to now and what are the features included in the every major or minor releases. So the initial release of .NET Core was released, or the initial version of .NET Core was released in the month of June 2016. It was the pioneer release for the .NET Core, and which is named as .NET Core 1.0. Now this release is outdated as Microsoft has come up with the new releases. So the support for the .NET Core 1.0 was ended on month of June 2019. So it has almost support for 3 years. Now, what is mean by out of support term? The out of support term means this in this version there will be no new developments. That is, Microsoft will not fix any issues related to the security or the other types. So there will not be any changes or there will not be any new releases coming in this particular version. So last release of .NET Core 1.0 was 1.0.16. So after this release, there will not be having any new release in this .NET Core 1.0 version. After the first release of 1.0, the .NET Core is come up with the new framework or the new version as .NET Core 1.1, which has the release date of November 2016. So now you can see here the first release for or the first major release for .NET Core was available on June 2016, and within the 3 months the Microsoft has come up with the new release or the new minor release in November 2016. So whenever the new release of .NET Core 1.0 as .NET Core 1.1 is released, the first release was available for deployment. So you were able to deploy or develop the applications by using .NET Core 1.0 as well. So in this particular minor release, there was the latest version of 1.1.13, right? And now it is become out of support. So if I'm saying out of support, there will not be having a new release as 1.1.14 to this particular framework. So next is the .NET Core 2.0. So this is a major release which was initiated by Microsoft in August 2017. After the first major release of 1.0, Microsoft is come up with the next major release in a year, right? So now this release is also out of support, so no new developments will happen in this particular major release. Next are the features of .NET Core. For every version I have specified here. So basically cross-platform, flexible deployment, source editor, which we have already discussed in our previous chapter, are the features for every version are deployed or available in every version of the .NET Core. So next is the .NET Core 2.1. So this is the minor version which was released in the May 2018, and the latest version of .NET Core 2.1 version was 2.1.30. It is now out of support, so there will not be having any new updates to this particular version. Then the next release or the next minor release of .NET Core 2.0 was 2.2.0. So which was released in the December 2018, and the latest security patch which was happened in this particular release was 2.2.8. This release is out of support now, so there will not be having any new features added to this particular release in the upcoming month. Now the .NET Core 3.0. This is the next version after the .NET Core 2.2 release, and it is now out of support as there will not be having new developments in this particular release. The latest patch of this release was deployed on February 2020 and the latest version was 3.0.3. There will not be having any new releases or the new fixes for this current release. Now I have highlighted here the .NET Core 3.1 and .NET 6.0. Basically, these two releases are in support as these releases are supported for the longer time, or it is categorized under the long time support. So here the long time support means the releases may be available for the year of three years or 1 year minimum. So the .NET Core 3.1 has been released in the December 2019 and it is categorized under the long time support and maintenance. So what is mean by maintenance? The maintenance means whenever the release is coming or whenever the release is expiring. So for the last 6 months, the Microsoft releases the security patches for this particular release only. Now this release will go out of date on the month of December 2022. So the support for the security patches will be available in the last 6 months. So basically this is just to mitigate the security vulnerabilities. Okay. So next is the .NET 5.0. So here it is written as .NET Core 3.1, but the next version is .NET 5. So why such written is as a .NET 5, or there is not a version of .NET Core 4.0? Can any one of you tell me? So any one of you aware of this particular concept, why there is not .NET Core 4.0 version?
Yeah, it's because of during that time only the .NET Core was developed. Before that, there is only .NET framework was there. So that's the point.
Okay, and what is the current version of the .NET framework?
It's 6 point.
Okay, so basically the current version of the .NET framework is .NET 4.8, and to avoid the confusion between the .NET Core and the .NET framework, the Microsoft has announced that there will not be having the .NET Core 4.0 version, right? So that they have decided that the next release will be .NET 5. So there will not be having any new releases in the .NET framework. So the next releases of the .NET Core will be considered as .NET only. Understood? So there will not be having any new releases in the .NET framework or the previous framework. Now from now onwards, the .NET Core will be called as .NET framework only, and the new developments will happen in the .NET Core framework only. Got it? So now the .NET 5 is out of support, so there will not be having a new releases in this particular framework, and the new release for .NET Core 5.0 is .NET 0.17, right? The next is the current version, which is .NET 6.0, and Microsoft has announced this particular release in November 2021. The current release of the .NET Core 6 is 6.0.8, and it will be available till the date, or it will be available for support till date November 2024, as it is categorized under the long time support category. Next is the upcoming release, which is .NET 7. It will be coming in the month of November, and this is under the preview or the testing environment. So the support for the Microsoft .NET 6 will be available till the November 2024. So where here the major release of .NET 7 will be coming in the month of November 2022, but the .NET 6 will be available for support till November 2024, right? The next version which is coming is after the .NET 7, it is .NET 8, and which will be coming in the month of November 2023, right? So now the current version of .NET is .NET 6, and we will be having the demo or our session in the .NET 6 environment only. So let's discuss what are the new features which are included in the .NET Core 6.0. So basic features which is available along with the .NET Core previous version are also supported by the .NET Core 6.0, and these are available for the development. Also, the new features that are already that are not present in the current or previous releases will be available in this particular framework. So unified platform, as we have already discussed in our previous session, it supports the Windows as well as Mac and the Linux operating system. It will be available for the development of the applications across the browsers, cloud environment, desktop, mobile apps, IoT apps, right? So this will be a uniform platform, or it is the target of the .NET Core 6.0 is to make it more compatible with the variety of applications, or to provide the development environment for many of the applications which are currently developed. Next, in .NET 6.0, the file input output performance is improvised. So this will be by using the .NET Core 6.0, will be having the decreased execution time, latency, and memory use. So overall performance of the application will get improved in the .NET Core 6.0. Then the .NET has come up with the version as 6.0, and which has the support for C# version 10. So there are some features which are already added in the C# 10 are the improvise or the improvements in the language capabilities, such as record structures. Then there will be a global using directive, so we can directly set the using directive in a separate file, and that we can use globally at our application, right? So the next is whenever we are creating a new class in our application, there are separate namespaces created when we are creating a multiple classes in a single file. So this is supported by the this is supported by the C Sharp 10. These are the basic features which are evolved in a C Sharp 10 version. So next is the constant interpolation of the string. So you can use the interpolated operator for const keyword. So basically we will be discussing this in our session which will be coming in the few days, or we will be having some sessions on the new features which are included in the C Sharp 10 version. There are also some improvements in the lambda expression which are coming with the C Sharp 10 language. So next is the VB. What are new features added in the .NET 6.0 are with the VB or Visual Basic Language, which come up with the UI and Windows form improvements. The next is the hot reload. So whenever you are running a .NET Core application, at the runtime you can make some changes, and while running that changes will be considered, and you can debug your application while running. You don't have to restart or rebuild your application whenever you are making these changes at runtime. Next is the JSON API performance. So capabilities and performance improvisation for JSON APIs along with the source generated are provided in the .NET 6.0. What does it mean by the source generated? The source generators such as system.text.json are provided in the 6.0. These generate the C# source files that can be compiled as a part of a library or the application build. Basically, this will be used for the performance improvement in our application. Next is the single page apps. So in a .NET Core 6.0, it supports the single page applications. So basically we can create we can use a language or the UI language such as Angular, React, JavaScript, or and other popular front-end JavaScript frameworks, and design our application in a single page. So you will be here, you will be having a single page which is developed in a HTML5, and you can create this single page application by using the .NET Core 6.0. Here the internally we will call the APIs, or we will call the methods which are available in the .NET framework, and internally the application, without loading the whole page, the application will load specific areas of the view, and we will not be we will not have to load the whole application or the whole page. The specific area of the application will get updated every time by using the asynchronous calls such as Java Ajax call. So you don't have to basically reload the whole page. We can use the partial views as well for this particular development. Next is the file input and output. Now the .NET Core 6.0 has provided the support for symbolic links, which is now giving the great performance. Next is the Blazor components. Now The Blazor component can be rendered from JavaScript and integrated with the existing JavaScript based apps. So basically, there is the extended support for Blazor framework, which will be used for building the interactive client-side web UI with .NET Core 6.0 framework. So IL trimming. The next feature is the IL trimming, which will be including the new warnings and analyzers to ensure a good or the proper messages and the proper final results to the environment. So these are the characteristics or the features which are included in the .NET Core 6.0, and we will be using this particular version for our session for the development of the new apps. Whatever we are developing in this particular session will be developed in the .NET Core 6.0 along with the Visual Studio 2022. If anyone of you not downloaded the Visual Studio 2022, can directly download it from the Microsoft website, and you can use the community edition, which is the free of cost for your development. So in this session we have seen the .NET Core versions in detail, and in the next session we will be completing the .NET Core CLI part.